Okay, I got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
All right, here we go. Full Auto Friday 13. I have 2 questions pre-selected. One of them is pretty germane to what's going on in my life right now or how I'm feeling today. The other one is, I think, just good advice in general with things that I think people likely struggle with. And then about 10 minutes ago, I went on Twitter and I said, I'm soliciting for Full Auto Friday questions. So I'm going to answer these 2, maybe not limit myself to 5 minutes. And then I'm going to go onto Twitter as I'm recording and just fire away. We're going to have a little bit of rapid fire here for the end of Full Auto Friday 13, and we'll get everybody to the weekend. How to submit questions. I get this one often. If you go to clearedhotpodcast.com, click the Contact Me tab, or andystump.com, and click the Contact Me, and it'll just send you right into an email. And if you want to make it easy for me, put Full Auto Friday in the subject line. That way I can Google search it in my inbox, which is probably the number one way that I find these questions. And it will come up front and center, and I'm doing my best to pick ones that are not repetitive because they're not fun to answer for me when they're repetitive, and I suspect they are not fun for people to listen to. Same question time after time. Having said that, here we go. The first of 2 questions that I have pre-planned for Full Auto Friday. Hey, Andy, you've talked a lot about not letting emotions drive behavior over the past 2 years or so that I've been listening to your podcast. What are your best practices around being aware of and controlling one's emotions so we don't end up doing something stupid? This is something that I'm aware of and struggling with in myself. I assume if most people in the world were more aware of their emotions and how they could affect behavior, there would be far less dumbassery and violence. Thank you for the podcast. Keep them coming. All right. Why? This guy's name is Warren, by the way. I won't go with the last name because maybe he doesn't want it used. Why does this question tie into me and what's going on in my life right now? Let's go with this. Don't listen to this particular episode with kids in the car because this exact question ties into exactly how I feel right now. And how I feel right now is pretty shitty. I am having a fucking bad day. And I've been having a bad week before this day. So life right now is kicking me in the teeth and then alternately in the balls. So I am dealing with my own emotions. It's why I picked this question. Because just like everybody else on this planet, every human being, you are an emotional creature and you're going to get to a point where you may lose control of your rational thought and start engaging with your reptilian mind or your emotional side of your brain. And that is not what I recommend having happen in your life. Recognizing it is the first step. So you said in your message, I think this came from Instagram, that this is something that you're aware of and struggling with in yourself. That is already light years down the road. For me, I can tell usually by how my body feels when I'm getting to the point where emotions are starting to take over. For me, when I am stressed out, or I'm really frustrated, I will actually get cramps in my neck. And that is how I know that there is stress somewhere in my life that is building up and it is starting to eat away at me. And it makes it actually difficult for me to talk. It's like, I think it's the muscles that would be associated with clenching my teeth. I'll find my shoulders up in my ears. I will notice that my body temperature seems to be higher, that I'll start to sweat. And the first thing that I do, and I'm going to use today as a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Today sucked balls, a massive set of balls. And of course, on a day that sucks, what ends up happening is that I am presented with decision after decision after decision. At least that is how I perceived it. But I knew how I was feeling today, and my number one tool, Warren, to actually answer your question here instead of just fucking rambling, is that I remove myself from important decisions, at least for the day or the moment. You know, in this case, for me, I have a hard rule for myself, like today is done for making decisions. And I knew that kind of waking up. I woke up to some bad news and a bad situation, and it didn't get any better for me from that point on. So early this morning when I was having a cup of coffee, my front of my brain conscious thought, I'm not making important decisions today. I'm not responding to emails today that are not a very simple yes or no. So I recognized it, and then I detached myself from those decisions, because if I don't, I'm going to say or do things that I will end up regretting, because I am no different than anybody else. If I let my emotions take over, what is going to happen? Emotional responses, emotional actions. Most of the time, if you give it enough time, you can tie that to some regret. So today, for me, I'm not making those decisions, and that's going to be okay, because in my life, for what I do for a living or what I'm living or working my way through, there's no emergency that has to be answered in the next 24 hours that's going to be catastrophic. And for most people's lives, unless you're the linchpin of a company or the CEO or the only person that can make a decision, if you find yourself in an emotionally ridden state, you are going to be okay if you take a pause. And maybe you can't take the whole day, but you should probably take a few hours. And if you can't take a few hours, you need to at least take a few minutes. And if you can't do that, what you need to do is get a hold of somebody that either works for you, with you, whatever it may be, and you need to grab that person and you need to talk to them about what's going on in your decision-making process. And before you make decisions, you need to bounce ideas off of them. This is something that I do not have a perfect track record of doing. I do not have a perfect track record by any stretch of the imagination of controlling my emotions and not saying things or doing things that I regret. But it is something that I will consistently and constantly work on for the rest of my life. And that is the best advice that I can give you, and that's how I do it, and hopefully that helps. Recognize first, separate yourself, and then readdress the issues when you are in a much better emotional or mental state. That was question number 1. Question number 2. Fortunately, this one isn't about being angry, because I could go on for quite some time about being angry. This comes from Chris. My question for you is, how do you manage to keep your world small and not get sucked into the void that is browsing Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. for endless hours during the day? I find it very difficult to not get distracted by these apps and just waste time scrolling through and inevitably getting lost in a social media rabbit hole. I am not interested in cutting out these apps completely, because I do find value in posts from people such as yourself and most people my age, in parentheses 28. These people only communicate via these mediums. Do you have any tips or suggestions to help with this issue? I do. And before I give you those tips or suggestions, let me just tell you, the struggle is real for all of us. And I can't honestly say if I remember reading an article about this, or perhaps it is just my own suspicion. But the things that you mentioned, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, well, there's no way that I came up with this, because I'm not smart enough to come to these conclusions. But I'm pretty sure I have read about these apps being designed on feedback loops that prey on sucking up your time. You're looking for likes, or you're looking for acceptance or admiration or feedback from these apps, so they keep you coming back. They're designed to be addictive. And that's kind of what they are. I think IG is sucking in more people. Well, my kids are teenagers and they're on the tiki-taki quite often. I think that one might have a hold of the younger generation. But regardless, probably the number one thing that was a shocker for me and really helped me pull my head out of my ass when it came to allocation of time on social media. I use an iPhone. If you don't use an iPhone, stop fucking around. It's 2020 and go get an Apple device. I know I don't like the control and I want to have an Android and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, go get a fucking Apple. It's 2020. So I digress. It has a screen time counter on there, and it gives me the breakdown every week. Or if I'll fire this thing up right now. What ends up happening is I can pretty much at any time on one swipe to the left from the homepage, I can get a look at my screen time, and it breaks it down between social networking, productivity, reading and reference, and it gives you your weekly totals as well. If that number doesn't blow your hair back and light it on fire just a touch, there's probably nothing that is going to, because I think the insidious part of these apps or these portals is that they're a time suck, but they're a time suck at 5 minutes that turns into 10, and then you get off, but you're back on them in 10 minutes. And it's, I'm just going to check this, and then you're on for 15 minutes, and then you're back off. It's the cumulative time that gets you with those little micro bursts. When I got that first screen report, I was shocked at how much I was on my phone. And part of what I do in being an ambassador or a sponsored athlete is, posting and being on social media. So I feel what you're saying from a different perspective. I communicate more directly with people over email or text or phone call, but I understand what you're saying because I watch my kids do it through Snapchat or whatever it may be. It comes down to setting boundaries for yourself. And I have no doubt that there's a bunch of apps out there that are specifically designed to help people monitor and manage their time on social media platforms. And I say that because it's a problem. Just go out into a restaurant and look around at families. And I do this all the time. Mom and dad sitting there, phones in their hands. Kids all around them, phones in their hands. They're, social networks, they're anything but social, and I would say they could be used as a network with air quotes. I'll use that term very lightly. What it does is just it sucks up your time, energy, and effort. And that sucks. And that's too many sucks in one sentence. I'm not going to use that word again. Identify how much time you're actually spending. Because if you don't have something that's keeping track of it, it's going to be very subjective. And you will probably talk yourself into saying, oh, it's not that bad. I'm not spending that much time on it. So get some concrete numbers and then multiply that number. You want to scare yourself? Take your weekly value, multiply that by 52. Or, your daily value, if it gets you that, and multiply it by 7 and then multiply that by 52. And you're going to realize that a portion of your life is getting lost on things that really don't matter that much. Once you realize that, or maybe you don't realize that, and if that's the case, Chris, then drive forward and do good things and use the platforms as much as you want to. But if you do realize that, you have to set boundaries for yourself. So when I'm going to go onto social media, and I'm not perfect at this either, I don't have a perfect track record, but I'll look at the time. And right now I'm looking at this, it's 4:09 p.m. I'd say, all right, I got until 4:20 maximum, regardless of what it is that I'm doing. And then I'm off, and I won't allow myself to go back on again for at least another hour. But before I go back on, I'll look at the clock. What time is it? Boom, here we go. You have 10 minutes maximum, depending on what it is that I'm trying to do. And I have found that by doing that in the first week, it halved my screen time, which that saved me. It was like an hour and a half a day that I re-netted myself. So that's a work day. That is a work day over the course of a week. I highly recommend doing that and just setting hard and fast boundaries for yourself. Because if you don't, these apps are not designed to reward you for setting those boundaries. They are designed to reward you by having your phone in front of your face, interacting in a digital world. So put that sucker down, lift your chin up, and interact in the real world. And that's the best advice that I can give you, Chris. And now, after just talking shit on social media, I'm going to fire up Twitter, and I'm going to answer a few questions. We'll see. I'll play my own game. It's 4:11. We are going to answer Twitter questions for the next 5 minutes, and that is going to be it. So now I have to figure out how to use this damn thing. There's my personal profile. Good. There's the post. Oh, shit. 41 questions. Okay. Favorite scenery when jumping? As an Alberta native, I'd say here and Montana have the best. Big Fish is the username of this person. I would say Big Fish, you need to jump a little bit more throughout the world. I have found that coastal drop zones have the best scenery. Mountainous drop zones are amazing. Skydiving I actually haven't been skydiving in Switzerland, but I've done some base jumps that are high enough that you feel like you are. So Europe has got some great mountainous environment. But the coolest jump I think I've ever done was over the island of Guam, where there was 6 or 7 different colors of amazing blue water. And I wish that jump had lasted for 10 minutes because I was just up there in awe of the beauty, the color, the landscape. It was amazing. It was amazing. And it was better than Alberta. Sorry, don't want to burst your bubble. If you could only have one caliber, what would it be? That was from Brandon. 300 Win Mag. And I say that because it's the one I have the most experience with, and I like it. And when you shoot things with a 300 Win Mag, they don't fucking get up. So I like that. How many beers would it take for you to consider challenging Jocko to an iron cage, winner take all, no holds barred deathmatch? This is from Dogs Are Pigs. Ooh, man, I'm sure there's a story behind that screen name. The answer to that is it wouldn't matter how many. One, I consider Jocko to be a friend, and I am not a fan of engaging in activities with the expressed intent of actually hurting your friends. Jocko is very good at imparting violence on other people. I am not as good at imparting violence on other people when it comes to a no-hold-bars death match. But I would suspect that neither of us would have any interest in participating in that. And as a matter of fact, if we were forced into that environment, it would be my choice not to try to attack Jocko, because that's the amount of respect that I have for him. Rick Faint, favorite mix of Killcliff flavor and type of alcohol? Good question. I describe Killcliff as the duct tape of mixers. It's got a broad range. So my favorite, though, is orange. I like orange and vodka. Tito's vodka specifically. It is delightful. There is a purple flavor, a grape-based flavor, and that goes very well with whiskeys or bourbons. You might think that I'm joking when I say that, but I am not joking. You will have many more of those than you think that you are going to, and your head won't actually hurt as bad as you think it will when you wake up in the morning. There is a green flavor as well. That's a great tequila mixer. And all of these, by the way, they have a CBD alternate as well, which I usually will use as the mixer, and they taste equally as much. And I tell myself that I'm also fighting inflammation at the same time. So those are kind of my three go-tos, but I actually haven't had a mixture. I've cross-pollinated some of those, and it hasn't ended up being bad. It's the duct tape of mixers. So I would say explore your space. Jason Romo, when are you, Jocko Willink, and Joe Rogan going hunting? We did that last year. That's where the mother of all podcasts came from. We were in Utah together. Joey Bingham, you got to answer the most important question of all. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? Of course it does. And you know what else does? Barbecue sauce. For people out there who say that barbecue chicken is not a pizza, you can go fuck yourself. Next question. Let me find some. Cam Cannon, single most important piece of apparel for a first-time bow hunter. I would say your bow, but that's not really a piece of apparel. I would go with your base layers. And then actually, as soon as that escaped my mouth, I would say make sure you have a good rain layer. And, man, the more I think about that, you need to have a system. It's one of the things that I like about Sitka. I was just talking with my buddy John Barkalow about this. He's not a fan of giving people like a shirt and a pair of pants. You need a system. So I'm not going to give you a single most important piece of apparel because it might end up like being socks. Don't walk around in your shoes barefoot. What you need to do is find a system that works well to suit your needs and is designed for the environment that you are going to be into. Do you think we should just test one hydrogen bomb a year so everyone knows what's at stake? Jeremy, I can't say your last name. No, I don't. I think that would be a horrendous idea. And let's just think about for a second what that would do to the environment. I really don't think that there's a need to be doing that. Do we have to wait for you to achieve a black belt to publicly call out Seagal for a kumite? That is from Formerly Essential. No, that motherfucker's on blast right now. I'll fight him anywhere he wants, and I probably would choose the weapon that I was going to fight Chris Daly with. JT DeBolt, what's your go-to strategy for dealing with anger and rage? We covered that in one of the first questions. How do I like my steak cooked? From Kyle Smith. I would say medium rare at best. I'd rather it be bleeding as opposed to a hockey puck. Rip Hammerstein, since 223 is so hard to find, brass knuckles or bear traps. I didn't realize that those were the only two options after 223 because maybe you have a pistol caliber or you could just hoard a little bit of 223 if you need to. Brass knuckles or bear traps. Bear traps suck. They're way too big. Brass knuckles, I mean, if those are the options, I'm going to say neither and go with nunchucks or a bow staff. And I have training on neither. What else do we got here? Joshua Powell, what's your favorite part about the 4 mile time run? When it's fucking over, all right? Here's the deal. Running is for cowards. Stop training to run away. What you need to do is train to turn around, plant your feet on the goddamn line in the sand, and fight. Now, it's just my personal opinion. Actually don't do what I say. Christopher Miklas, would you support sentencing politicians convicted of pedophilia to life sentences at Guantanamo Bay? I absolutely would, and I'll give you one. There should be a death sentence associated with that. Adrenaline Addict, have you ever seen a naked man in a Turkish prison? I have not, only because I haven't been to a Turkish prison, though, not due to lack of trying. Ben Huff, how big do you think A-10 pilots' balls are? Big enough that they should have a second ejection seat in the back so that their balls can have a good ride and a good view. One more, and then we're done. Why do the guys in the Army give you guys so much shit? Tim Kennedy post comments section. I'm assuming he means Army versus Navy. And my answer to that is, maybe we'll end this on a positive note, is that we actually really like each other. And I think it's a sign of mutual respect. I know Tim not incredibly well. I have an immense amount of respect for the man. I do oftentimes talk shit to him on his own page, but it has come from a place of love, admiration, and respect, and not hatred at all. And I would hope that it is the same from their side of the house towards ours. And that's all I got. Full out of Friday, round 13. Go enjoy your weekend.